Sten, we're live.
And thank you. That was the great voice of Larry the Liberty Guy. And this is Mike Stenhouse, and we welcome you to another edition of In the Dugout here on rifreedom.org/live. All right. Boy, there's so much to talk about. It's hard to figure out what to whittle down. You know, we only have three. Right now, we're doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 1 hour. We really should be doing every day. We really might be there's so much to cover more, but we need to see more viewers. So talk to your friends, promote the show, and you get the email, send it around, text people when you're on. Hey, this is a cool topic. So we'd like to talk about more because there's so much to talk about. So what we're going to talk about today, after a little batting practice where we just do some quick hits, the three main topics today, a couple my commentary topics today will be Pope Francis, and how I wish Pope John Paul II was back. I'll explain when we get to that. New little twist I heard today on national radio, and it made me think about this transportation and climate initiative gas tax that Governor Raimondo signed us up for, that many environmentalists on the left want to see happen. Always happy to tax you. Always. They're just always happy to tax you. Is it all about petroleum masculinity? We'll talk about that. And I'd like to see your comments on that too. And then we will go at the bottom of the hour. We'll bring on our weekly Tuesday guest, our Ocean State Current editor, our center's research director, Justin Katz, who will do his weekly review of legislation that he calls the good, the bad, and the interesting. So we'll look at three bills that one good one, one bad one interesting one. All right, tomorrow you'll see I was going to do it today, but I want to get some of these other items in. Tomorrow I'm going to have a longer commentary on the budget put forth by Governor McKee. And I got to say, we talked about it as a staff today at the center, and we're quite disappointed. It's really the same old stuff, the same old status quo. We'll have a lot more comments, specific comments on it tomorrow. So that'll be in the top of the show, working on a potential other guest. But our main guest tomorrow for the second half of the show will be John Marion. Now, John is a good guy with a Common Cause Rhode Island, but sometimes they take stances that befuddle the mind, and they are the lead advocates for legislation that would enshrine everything insecure that happened in last year's election and enshrine all that into law. And they're pushing legislation. They have a campaign called Let Rhode Island Vote, as if somebody's stopping Rhode Islanders from voting right now. So we'll hear John's views on why he thinks this is good legislation. You may recall, I don't know, what was it, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, we had this, in reading through the bill, it looks a lot like the United States House of Representatives bill, H.R. 1, that would just completely reform elections in the state, removing the authority from states, putting it in the hands of the federal government. And so then this bill looks a lot like that. So we'll talk to John Marion about that, about election integrity in Rhode Island. Will the proposed legislation help it or hurt it? Then Thursday, we're mostly confirmed. I haven't even told Larry the Liberty Guy yet, but I think we're going to have a pro Second Amendment guest. There's a whole slate of bills that will restrict your Second Amendment rights that are being heard by the in committee in Rhode Island on Friday. And we'll have a longtime Second Amendment defender, I think, as our guest in the first half of the show Thursday. And then, as always, at the bottom of the hour on Thursdays, we'll have talk to Dr. Andrew Boston about all things COVID-19. And he's always got some, as you know, Andy always has some really forward-thinking ideas on where we should be going, as well as some very critical commentary on where we've been, or at least where we've been as far as what government's reaction has been to this whole thing. So that'll be on Thursday. Okay, time for a little batting practice. We'll go with the trusty Harvard Crimson cap, where I must boast I was a two-time All-American wearing this cap at Harvard, so under baseball. So if you didn't know that, there you go. Okay, speaking of COVID-19, so, they're at it again in the media. It's just really, I don't even know how to say it. Here's the headline. Rhode Island COVID cases rise by 237 more deaths. Now, with that, you would think that, wow, we got more bad news on the COVID front. And then this is the same in every radio headline. This is the same on television. This is the same in every news outlet you see. We're just happen to pick on Providence Business News today because they're pretty consistent with this. But that headline, 7 more COVID deaths and 230 more cases, really couldn't be any further from the truth. The truth is, as you can see here, and this is looking at Channel 12, who just puts out the numbers. I don't know what their headlines say, but you can see the cases. Yes, there are 230. That's right here, 230, way down here. So that's going to bring the trend down. The trend is down. So while you say a rise in cases, well, that's technically true, but we're actually seeing a drop in the rates, a severe drop. Look at this drop, a severe drop. And when they say 7 more deaths, you can't see it here because it's not an interactive chart, but it's only 3 yesterday. Only 3. The other 4 were somehow, they all of a sudden recategorized 4 deaths from past weeks or months as COVID deaths. You got to be dubious about that whole process. About either you died of COVID, and you knew it, or you didn't. But how do you recategorize something? Seems to me like they're fudging the numbers on that. But again, it's just the media putting in the scare. They're doing the handiwork of the government. Don't forget, they're aligned with the government. They're in some grand bargain to create headlines, to create news items, to increase the fear, so they can justify their mandates. They can justify their emergency powers control, which, don't forget, we've been under a state of emergency in this state for over a year. Do you really feel like we're in a state of emergency right now? We certainly were during the first few months last year of this. But are we really in a state of emergency where the governor should have unchecked powers to keep businesses semi-locked down, to restrict our ability to gather, and to impose other mandates? Does it really feel like an emergency? I mean, just go outside. Look at the people driving around. Look at the people walking around. Look on TV. The crowds gathering back at events. Does it really feel like we're in an emergency right now? Listen, we have a severe pandemic to deal with, but as we just showed you the charts, we're dealing with it. I don't want to say we've beat it, because I don't know if this thing's going to come back. These other strains have been a more fake news just to keep the gear going. But again, look at these trends. Look at these trends. And look at the way people are living their lives. Sure, there are some people out there who are panicked, who are scared to death, who want to stay shuttered for the whole rest of their life out of fear out of this thing. There are some of those people out there. But to you, to me, does it really feel like we're still in an emergency? Why does our state need to be governed under a state of emergency any longer? I haven't heard Dan McKee address this. I don't know if he has or not. Let me know if he has. I haven't heard anyone in the media ask him about it. And I haven't heard anyone in the media ask Joe Shekarchi or the Speaker of the House or Rhode Island Senate President Dominic Ruggiero if they're going to take actions to undo, which they have statutory authority to do, to undo this state of emergency and to return balanced government, separation of powers, checks and balances to our government. It's been unilateral, dictatorial type rule by the executive branch. Sure, the General Assembly's out there discussing other bills, but when it comes to COVID, it's 100% the executive branch. Judicial branch has shut down challenges of rights violations. Legislative branch refuses to engage out of political timidness. Is that a word, timidness? I don't know. And the executive branches, and I haven't, Gina Raimondo, we reveled in the power. It doesn't look like Dan McKee revels in the power so much, but I don't know that he's doing anything to undo the power. Speaking of executive power, I mean, just look at what Joe Biden has done. I mean, we're not going to go into much detail on this, but the situation at the border is another self-inflicted wound by this government. The tens of thousands, the millions more that will come to California, to other states. Texas is taking it upon itself to defend its own borders, claiming that if the federal government fails to do its responsibility, then it has a responsibility to its state residents. I don't know about the constitutionality of that, but I like the thinking of that. Someone's got to do the right thing here. None of us believe in open borders, but that's what's happening. And it's going to cause, as we know that there's people leaving California, just like there are people leaving Rhode Island. And it's all because of self-inflicted wounds, bad policies when it comes to taxes and businesses, regulations, high taxes on the electorate, on the citizenry. And now, Rhode Island's not a border state by any means, but nobody knows in this state how many illegal immigrants are here, how many seats they take at public schools, how many services they consume, from Medicaid to whatever else, food stamps. Nobody knows how many jobs they've taken of American-born Rhode Islanders. They hide that from you. Nobody knows. I know doctors who are asked to see illegal immigrants under the radar, off the Medicaid rolls, can't talk about it, but please help them. We can't do this officially, so let's do it illegally. Nobody knows. And all we do is make our place, and all we do is there's only so much money we have in this state, in this country. There's only so many jobs available. And why would we want to increase competition among a limited number of jobs? Okay, that's enough for batting practice. All right, my first topic is very personal to me. I am a Catholic. When I was a student here at Harvard, in I think it was fall of my senior year. Yeah, that would have been what year? No, fall of my senior year. What year was that? 1979. You can look it up. I went with some friends through the church at Harvard. And we got some passes, and we went to see Pope John Paul II in the Boston Common. It's a rainy, cold day. We were bundled up. We didn't have, I don't think we brought umbrellas. I don't know if we were expecting the rain or we were just stupid kids. I don't know, but I remember we were trying to cover ourselves with blankets, but it wasn't long before the rain was soaking through the blankets and it was dripping on us. But anyway, we got to see the Pope. We didn't get too close, but he was up on the stage, maybe 75, 80 yards away we got from the stage. And that was a great thrill for me as a Catholic. I didn't know at that point how much more I would come to revere Pope John Paul II when he unofficially but openly joined with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher to fight against communism. Pope Jean Paul was my hero for that. And I'll get more on that in a second. But I want to comment. So I was the United Socialist, USSR, United Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And I'm going to use my own made up little acronym here. The USSC, the Union of Soviet Socialist Countries, appears to be what our current Pope wants, Pope Francis. He's written a book, and he's called for a new world order, a great reset, which is basically the European Union times 100, where every country in the world is part of this new order, with the first goal of preserving the environment, developing sustainable green energy technologies. That's what the Pope says the New World Order should become. And after the pandemic, we should all learn the lesson, about humanity, and we need to all work together. This is naive times 1,000. He's my Pope. But I'm sorry to say this. But he's a socialist. He's a liberal socialist. I mean, again, think of that. Pope John Paul II fought against communism and socialism, the USSR. And this Pope wants a USSC, a Union of Soviet Socialist countries. I can't square those two things. Pope John Paul II was my hero, spiritually and in a way politically. While Jean Paul II didn't fight politically, he fought communism from a spiritual level. He fought communism and socialism, saying it does not match with the human soul, the innate human desire to achieve, to be successful, to work, to produce, not to have someone else, a government, for instance, provide for you. I just can't, as a Catholic, I have such trouble squaring these two popes, 180-degree opposite each other. Oh, I wish John Paul II was back. So let me lead you a little bit about it from a news account from some excerpts from Pope Francis's book. So he's claiming that things will never be the same in a post-pandemic world. And because of, see how they're using the pandemic, the left is using the pandemic for everything. The left is using their pandemic to advance their agenda. Did it with election reform. They're doing it now with the welfare state, an excuse to throw all these billions and trillions of dollars to states and to people, hook them to have them become dependent. Like we said earlier, have somebody else provide for them other than the work of their own hands. And here Pope Francis says that after the pandemic, because of the pandemic, we're going to need that kind of worldwide governmental socialism. He says we should shift away from financial speculation. That means capitalism. Okay, so here we have Pope Jean Paul work with capitalist societies to defeat socialism. And here we have a pope basically condemning capitalism, what he calls financial speculation, away from fossil fuels, he says, and away towards military buildups. Everybody should be defenseless. And guess what we got to move for? A green economy based on inclusiveness. You may remember when Pope Francis spoke to the United States Congress some years ago. It was a long time, 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know. And I remember we had staff meetings. Larry Liberty guy, you might remember this. I said, you know what? He spoke for 30, 40 minutes in front of the United States Congress, and not once did the Pope, not once did the head of the Catholic Church across the world, I don't know, is it billions of people maybe who are faithful to Christ, Christians or Catholics anyway? Maybe not billions Catholics, I don't know. A lot, hundreds of millions anyway. Not once did he mention the word God, Jesus Christ, faith, or religion or anything. Church. He spoke politics. Shut up and preach. You're the Pope. Your political views don't matter. Pope Jean Paul II voted communism not from a political angle, but from a human spiritual angle. That communism and socialism is bad for the soul. And he's right. And yet all this Pope does is talk petty politics. I'm glad in my mind I can separate faith from church, because I'm really disappointed in the church right now. My faith is stronger than ever. The Pope goes on to say, after the pandemic, none of us can afford to rest easy. The world will never be the same again, but it is precisely within this calamity that we must grasp those signs which may prove to be the cornerstones of reconstruction. Eliminate capitalist societies, move towards union of Soviet socialist countries. And here we go, politics. Who said this? Listen, you're not going to believe this. Let us all keep in mind that there is something worse than this crisis. The drama of wasting it. You know the political line, you never let a crisis go to waste. That's a political statement. Here's Pope Francis, political statement. We cannot emerge from a crisis the same as before. We either come out better or we come out worse. We can heal injustice by building a new world order based on solidarity. Of course, solidarity means the left, you think our way or you get canceled. That's what solidarity is. Think our way or you get canceled. We need to study innovative methods to eradicate bullying, poverty, and corruption. Bullying? New World Order will be based on eradicating inequalities and attending the environment, the Pope affirms. Attending to the environment. You know, there was a Pentagon, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or something years ago under Obama, was asked, what's the biggest threat the United States military faces in the world? And he said, global warming. What is it with these people? Who's been incinerated? Who's been flooded out of their homes? Despite all the headlines, the storms and floods and droughts or hurricanes are no worse than they ever were. The path to humanity's salvation passes through the creation of a new model of development, which unquestionably focuses on coexistence among peoples in harmony with creation. I'm okay with harmony with the earth. That's good. A path towards solution, Francis points out, is ecological movements. Politics again. And it goes on and on. Oh, how I wish Pope John Paul II was back. My staff will tell you, we've had arguments from the day, what's the word? He was coronated. What is the word for a pope? Enshrined. What is the word? Larry, you're, what is it? From day one.
Became Pope, Stan. Became Pope.
Yeah, but there's a word. I forget. Enshrined or something. Crowned, coronated. I don't know, something. I warned because I heard his first utterances were right out of the socialist playbook. I said, "Oh, watch out for this guy." Oh, come on, give him a chance. Give him a chance. Does anyone think I'm wrong now? One pope, 30-something years ago, helped to vanquish communism and socialism by focusing on the spiritual human nature. Now, 30 years later, another pope wants to build socialism back up by focusing on nothing but pure, petty, ignorant politics. The Union of Soviet Socialist Countries. That's my, not to be confused, that's my acronym. But I wanted to use it, USSR, USSC, to make that distinction with Pope John Paul II. And, that was a happy day for me as a student here at Harvard to go see my hero he wasn't my hero then. He was my spiritual leader then. He became my hero when he joined with Reagan and Thatcher. All right, a few more minutes before we bring on Justin Katz. Want to spend a few minutes talking about, just quickly, again, a few other quick hits. Joe Biden is talking about massive new taxes across the board. I mean, all kinds of taxes. Look at this chart. We're talking about small business taxes, capital gains taxes, dividend taxes, inheritance taxes. So you can see he wants to raise the corporate tax from 21 to 28, small business tax, which is the S corporation tax, from 37 to almost 40, income and payroll tax, top brackets up 50% to over 50%. Capital gains tax is almost doubling those. That's going to reduce investments in businesses. And then a new death tax on stock. I don't exactly know what that is, but anyway, and so this is Biden. Now, let's look at the corporate tax. Trump cut it from, 38 to 21 or something like that. So this chart shows that corporate income. Now, corporate income is two things. It's a corporate tax, plus I think it's the income tax. There's a lot of corporate profits are passed down to the employee. So right now, even after the Trump tax cuts, among the 37 nations in the OECD, that's the Organization for Economic something, the Cooperative Development or something like that. It's an international group of 37 supposedly free market countries. Even after Trump's massive tax cuts, we were still, what were we? 10th highest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 12. Under Biden's plan, we would be the most corporate tax country in the world, in the free world anyway. America, the least free country. It just doesn't make sense. Where the hell are we going? And it gets worse. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen openly admitting, well, we might also need a carbon tax on top of all this. We might also need a 2% annual wealth tax. Now that's not an income tax. That's a tax on existing assets. Studies have shown that a 2% wealth tax can erode a person's wealth by 50% in 20 years. By half of that, by 25% in 10 years. Just gone. Give it to the government to waste. speaking of energy taxes, and she's talking about a carbon tax, Yellen, so we have the TCI gas tax in Rhode Island. I just want to show you a few quick things before we get to Justin. First, there's a new report out. Rhode Island has something called renewable portfolio standards, which means a certain amount of our energy by law must be purchased from green energy sources, regardless of the cost of those sources. That's why we have some of the highest energy costs in Rhode Island and New England, because we have high renewable portfolio standards. Well, the findings have shown that after 7 years of these kinds of standards and mandates, it's cost about $30 billion for consumers in those states that did it. And after 12 years and another 5 years, those costs are going to be set 17% higher energy costs than they should be. And none of it really delivered any improvement in the environment, is the report. Rhode Island is among the highest states. Well, Gina Raimondo wants to go, what'd you say, 100% by 2030? That's impossible. It's impossible. These people are insane. It's not possible. I got to get this in, and I'll ask Justin just to hold because I see he's waiting. So be patient, Mr. Katz. I bloviated a bit today, but I gotta get this one in. I heard something today: petroleum masculinity. Some national columnists writing about how this surge in pickup truck sales, gas guzzling pickup truck sales, must mean that men are so insecure they need some way to demonstrate their masculinity by buying big trucks and consuming unnecessary gallons of petroleum. Petroleum masculinity. So I'm wondering if that could be the reason. We know how these leftists hate men, right? They want men reduced to nothing, and they want to feminize everything and remove toxic masculinity from everything. So I'm wondering if that's really behind this drive to raise the TCI gas tax in Rhode Island. Our senator's got a campaign. I'm going to show you 3 quick pictures, then we're going to get to Justin. We've got an ad campaign going right now, and I want you to go there, rifreedom.org/TCI, where you'll see a link right at the top button where you can sign a petition to say, no, I don't want a 35-40 cent TCI gas tax. So here is, so we're running 3 ads. I just want to tell you a little bit how we do marketing here. So this ad is just designed towards the regular public. And you can see that, we don't want to be punished for driving our cars and trucks, which is exactly what TCI advocates said they want to do. Want to punish people, want to turn the screws on them and break their will, quote, from the video we showed you on this show, to have you drive less. We've got another ad targeted towards urban communities because they want gasoline to go away. Driving your car is freedom. You can get to work, you can get to family, you can shop whenever you want. It's freedom, and it impacts low-income families more than anyone else, this TCI gas tax, to the tune in increased gas prices and increased product prices. Because remember, groceries and other delivered products by truck, their prices are going to go up because of the higher fuel costs. So it's about $1,200 a year. And then we have an ad specifically targeting seniors, because in that video we talked about, they specifically mentioned seniors on fixed income are the bad guys. So we need to break their will, turn the screws on them to have them drive less often. This is the TCI environmental attitude of environmental tyrants. These are the people, and I'm sorry to say, that Pope Francis supports. I don't get it. I don't accept it. So here, let's welcome in Justin Katz, the editor of the Ocean State Current, oceanstatecurrent.com, and our research director. Justin, welcome back to In the Dugout.
Hey, good to be back.
All right. First of all, are we going to have some fun today with the caps?
Well, it's a serious hat though. Around January
I know
6th,
never to take you seriously.
after January 6th, I started to feel like I needed to, I don't know, some way to display my membership in the resistance, and to kind of show that the real America exists. And so I found this hat, Short of Drive, Liberals Crazy. So it's got the fighting eagle on the side here,
Oh,
and
boy.
USA on the front.
That looks like, who's the big country singer? That looks like, what's his name? Toby Keith?
I don't know.
Yeah, that looks like a Toby Keith hat. Lean in closer. Let's get a close-up of that. Wow.
USA.
USA?
There's
Where'd you get that from?
I just found a website called Hats Unlimited.
If you had it for a while, you got it just for the show.
No, no,
Oh, yeah,
seriously, I
January
wanted
6th, you said. That's right, yeah.
I wanted something to go out and just people could see. You know, I'm not a
Okay.
tattoo person. I'm not big into t-shirts and stuff with all kinds of stuff on them. So I just wanted something that
All right. I love it. Great hat. Great. I love to
keeps
wear
the sun out of my eyes, which is good. It's better than that gardening hat I sometimes wear.
I like to wear plateau hats like Stevie Ray Vaughan style. Anyway, you've probably seen me in those. Okay, first of all, before we get to the good, the bad, and the interesting policies, you are much more, what was the word? In touch with and the Catholic Church. I don't know how much you heard about my commentary earlier before you joined on, but I'm very disappointed in Pope Francis calling for a new world order to be implemented after the pandemic. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, clergy of all kinds throughout history have made bad judgment calls on the prudential matters. When they try to get involved with that stuff, they often, I think they miss they're so focused on what they think is the underlying momentum and the underlying feelings behind these things that they don't necessarily get that, sort of like we talk about with legislation. It says something great. We're gonna save children and puppies with this legislation, but when you read what it actually does, it doesn't do that, but either by accident or by deliberately by deceit. I think people who are so in religious matters lose sight of the idea that there's so much error and deceit in the world. That's my positive spin on it.
Okay. Well, we've had this on there anyway. Well, I'm sure you're not agreeing with the Pope on a new world order.
Oh no, not at all.
Okay. All right. Let's do this before we get in. Let me just show people again. We want to talk about our website here.
By the way, on that one, I actually recently read a book, Robert Hugh Benson, Lord of the World, which Pope Francis actually recommended, as did Pope Benedict, and it's about the apocalypse and a new world. The Antichrist comes in almost like a new world order fashion. So it's almost baffling to me that some of these folks don't put two and two together.
All right. Now, let me ask you, I've just had a bit of a computer malfunction. Are you still seeing and hearing me okay?
Yeah, I seen here. You're fine.
All right. Is my screen being shared? Because I went to screen my share and all of a sudden everything but our little videos went black.
Nope.
The screen is not being shared. All right. I don't know. I was going to share our screen, but if you go to rifreedom.org/bills, and I'll do it as soon as I get my screen back. But why don't you talk about, even though we're not going to be able to show people unless you have it on your screen.
No,
here we go. All right, I got my screen back. Okay, here we go. Let me share this. That was weird. All right, so rifreedom.org/bills, and you can do exactly what we're doing here. So the bill numbers are, you want to talk about, the first one is what, Justin?
Well, let's start. There's actually the good is a set of three. They're slightly different, all of them. But the first one is S0426.
They just put in 0426. It brings us sponsored by Elaine Morgan.
Yep.
Okay, and what does this bill do?
So this one asks Congress and counts as the states vote toward a convention of the states with the sole purpose of changing the Constitution to impose term limits for Congress. Which I think is a it doesn't take much explanation to understand why that would be a good thing to do. We're not meant to be well, this and the other two bills that I'm going to mention are state level, but legislatures aren't meant to be councils of the elders with people who are in there for their entire lives. They're not supposed to be judges who have a lifetime appointment. And I think so. This bill is
yeah, we're supposed to have a rotating representation of actual people, hardworking people, right? Who understand what it's like to be a hardworking person.
Yeah, especially in the House.
Right.
I mean, the Senate, you could maybe is a little bit closer to the House of Lords or something in England, but the House is supposed to be freewheeling.
All right. So this bill is going to be before the, where has it been assigned to? Has it been assigned?
I don't know that if you go to actions, I think it would tell you. I'm not sure if it's been assigned yet. Senate Judiciary. Oh, they scheduled it.
Senate Judiciary. Oh, so it's scheduled for a hearing Thursday. Wow. So it's a joint resolution. All right, not binding, right?
Well, this would count, you need a certain number of states to sign off on a convention. And
okay, so
this would count toward that. So it's
all right. Now we saw earlier in the news that there was a bill put in by Barbara Ann Fenton Fung to implement term limits in Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's the second of the three this kind of group of good ones that I was going to mention.
All right, what's that bill number?
5862.
Is that the bill I just mentioned? Yep, there it is.
And so this one, in a word, would limit our state reps and senators to 5 2-year terms. So you get 10 years, you're out. And I think, again, that's a good thing. Research has shown actually that Rhode Island is, once you're in office, we don't like to get rid of people. And I think that tendency really goes on down the line and discourages involvement because people know there can only go so far. The seats aren't going to open up. So if there is an availability, at least every 10 years, more people I think would pay attention and be prepared to do that.
All right, couple comments. So first on the first bill for the National Convention of States, I can't imagine you can have a convention of the states and only have one issue. Right. There's no way you could limit it to that. Right. I mean, from a practical point of view.
I haven't dug into it enough. I imagine other states would start to load
state constitutional convention. It's wide open. Whatever the delegates want to bring up, they can bring up. So there's no way that could be limited.
Well, but
I still appreciate the spirit of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
On this bill, and again, I appreciate the spirit of the bill, and we would support it, but it has no chance of. I mean, there's no way state lawmakers are going to put a referendum. Now, this is calling for a referenda to amend the Constitution.
No, this would just go on the ballot, and the people would vote.
Yeah, it's a referendum, right?
But there's no convention. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're right. There's no convention, right? But I'm just saying today's lawmakers would never agree to put on a ballot referenda of a provision that would limit their authority. They'd never do that. Which leads us to our larger point, which we'll be talking about more after this legislative session ends, why a state constitutional convention is a must. It's the only way something like line item veto, inspector general, term limits like this is going to get passed. Don't forget, in 2024, Rhode Islanders, you're going to have a chance to vote like you did in 2014. Every 10 years, that has to happen, whether or not to hold a constitutional convention. And again, it's wide open. You'll get to vote whether to have a convention. You'll get to vote who the delegates are, and then you'll get to vote to ratify or not any constitutional amendments that come out of the People's Convention. We're calling it a People's Convention. So, while again, I appreciate this bill, my view has zero chance of passing through this politicized House or General Assembly. The only way we're going to get term limits is through a constitutional convention, a People's Convention. Okay. Next bill.
Well, in that group also is 5022. We don't have to look at that one. That's by John Lombardi. It also imposes term limits, but it expands the reps and senators' terms to 4 years. So you get 3 4-year terms under that bill. So that's another one.
Say that again. So instead of 2-year terms, you'd have 4-year terms.
Right. And you'd have 3 of them, which I don't know, to me, as somebody who follows and sometimes participates in politics, kind of makes sense. 2 years, you're just always campaigning. You never have breathing room to try to get anything done. So I could see the need to do that.
All right, so let's talk about that. So my main reason for term limits overall, whether it's 10 years, 12 years, I like to even see it less, to tell you the truth, but is to give the special interest less time to control somebody who has ambitions of being there for 10, 15, 20 years. They're going to do what the special interest wants because they have influence over elections. Agree with that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the primary reason for term limits. Plus it returns to the spirit of the Constitution, which is to have a rotating cast of
Citizen legislature. Yeah.
exactly, citizen legislature. Right now, it's a elitist class legislature. I mean, there are some hardworking citizens in there. Don't get me wrong. All right, but interesting, expanding the term from 2 to 4 years. Would that decrease maybe special interest pressure?
I would think so. I mean, if you could look
Yeah.
at Governor McKee right now. A lot of us are disappointed in the way he's so obviously catering to special interests in order to get over the finish line in a year and a half, 2 years. That's equivalent to what, as soon as a legislator with 2 years in there, that they're always in that situation. So I think that's pretty good evidence of the attitude.
All right. Nevertheless, 3 bills to recommending some way to get to term limits, 1 at the federal level, 2 at the state level. Okay, so those are the good bills, and we agree fully. All right, what's next?
So
Again, you can go to, if you're watching, rifreedom.org/bills. We've got a lot of bills, 70, 80 bills you can track, and you can use the filter here to search. Go ahead, Justin.
So this one, 5028, and then if you put or, and then 0354. So these are this year, a new group of bills I keep coming across where I read them, go, that's terrible. I can't believe the progressives are doing that. And I look at who's sponsoring it, and it's Republicans. It's becoming pretty confusing to me. So the House bills from Representative Newberry and the Senate bills from Senator De La Cruz. And what these do, and Brian Newberry's been on this for a while, although in a better fashion this year. I think somebody probably slipped something either in his drink or in his bill. But these bills pursue a civics education requirement, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And they do kind of nod toward the quote history and heritage of the US. But what they concretely do more than anything is they create this requirement for what's called project-based civics or action-based civics, which is popping up all over the country this year. And basically, it would require high school students to take as a project advocating something in their local community, so advocating something to government and reporting back about the results. So in essence, this is creating an advocacy force, almost certainly for the left wing in Rhode Island, and it would sick hundreds of kids in every town and city on their local officials with issues that nobody maybe even cares about, but they have to find something to go advocate for. And you kind of have this defenseless population who just want to go about their lives.
What's the chances it's going to be a right-wing, a conservative issue being advocated for? Exactly.
And that's where, I mean, a lot of this, I mean, maybe in a time when we could trust in our institutions and schools, we could go with this. But I mean, it says nothing in there. There's no language in there that leaves it to the students and guarantees them that they won't be discriminated based on their viewpoints or whatever. And so the Department of Education is going to put nothing that advocates for hate, and of course they define hate. Nothing that
it's all going to be woke stuff, of course.
It's got to be, or benign stuff like I want you to fix the potholes, but they'll never be able to push back on the progressive ideas. But to me, as somebody who's been involved in local
let me ask this. How strong is the language about mandating a honest, real historical look at American history and government? How strong is that language?
It's not very. I mean, it leaves it to the
Department of Education. If that language were strong, I might say I could tolerate a bunch of high school kids just spinning their wheels out there. But if because what we all really want is strong, actual history.
And that's the spirit of Brian Newberry's legislation in the past, was to get.
And you're not confident about that.
No. I think it's been modified from his original intent. And making it worse, there's a separate Senate bill that actually passed the Senate last week by Senator Gallo, And that one doesn't touch on what kind of civics education it would be, but it allows civics education to displace actual history and social studies requirements. So you put the two together.
It allows them to do that?
Well, actually, no, it requires them. This must fulfill, I think it's a half a credit of history. So you could take a half a year off of learning from your book and go picket town hall for free lunch or whatever it is, whatever progressive cause you want. So I think this is just lunacy, and I think it would really start to tear apart communities rather than give students an appreciation of their system of government.
All right, so we like part of the bill, but it appears as if there's more negatives on this bill. So did you put this as the bad or the interesting?
No, this is the bad.
All right, so you think the bad outweighs the good in this bill?
Oh, by far. I mean, the good is almost like a hint. I mean, it's almost like a hint of goodness. Like that's the cover. That's as we were talking about before with the church. This is the sunny idealism we're going to put behind this, but it's really just fluff as far as the practical implications of the bill are, in my view. And plus, I happen to know Stanley Kurtz, he's a DC conservative think tank type. He's contacted me about this legislation after he read my post in the Ocean State Current. And these bills are popping up everywhere. And a lot of them are Republicans who probably haven't read or haven't considered what it is they're actually doing. They just like the idea of teaching civics. And so it's a real problem popping up now across the country.
Can we get Stanley on the show?
Oh, I'm sure he'll
let's do it. Now that we've broached the topic, let's do it. All right. What do you got for the interesting?
So the interesting is 5923 and 0527. This is a hot topic locally over in East and West Greenwich. It's about the
med recycler.
Yeah, the med recycler, although it doesn't refer to them. This would basically ban a new, well, they're not too new, but technology that creates energy from basically melting waste. Often it's biomass. Sometimes some versions of it it's food waste. Some version it's wood and that sort of thing. In this case, it's medical waste in a controversy in West Greenwich and East Greenwich. But the idea is it heats it up so much that it creates gas on one hand and kind of a sludge on the other. The sludge can be used in stuff, anything tar can be used.
Why would we ban private sector technology?
Well, the reason a lot of people just aren't confident in the ability to control the gases the exhaust that'll come out. That's the main reason. A lot of it, I think, it's a strange thing. What I find interesting, government is and this is an interesting question whenever you're dealing with local zoning issues. Government is there to mediate between neighbors so that what you're doing on your property isn't infringing on your neighbor's rights. That's a legitimate concern. But what we're seeing here in this situation, especially with the specific one in West Greenwich, is the state's okaying it, the local planning board seems to be okaying it, and yet people are pushing back. And well, do we not trust our planning boards? And isn't that what they're there for? And if they're not able to do it, then we're really not. Why not get rid of the pretense?
Yeah. This is such an interesting topic. I'm glad you brought it up, Justin. To that point, and if I may, a few others. I think all of us have lost faith in all of our institutions. I mean, almost everything from city governments to planning boards to school committees have been overly politicized, agenda-driven, susceptible to political pressure, if not outright corruption, instead of doing the right thing. And just like the fake news, you don't know what to believe when a commission or a panel makes a recommendation anymore. You don't know if they're doing it right. You're very active in Tiverton politics. You don't know if they're doing it for the right reasons or not, right? How do you know?
You can't. Well, the way you can kind of tell is nobody's working toward a solution. I mean, the solution to me is if you don't like the idea of the exhaust, you say, well, is there anything you can do to reassure the public there's no exhaust? Is there anything we can do to test regularly and put you within bounds of but they don't go there. It's all fight. It's here we're gonna allow it. Here we're gonna ban it. There's no compromise between neighbors, so to speak.
So what's politically interesting about this is a number of things. And I've had a few calls on this in the last few days. People have called me, so I'm glad you brought it up. First of all, you've got a fight now brewing between environmental leftists like Justine Caldwell in East Greenwich, who who's one of the lead sponsors on this bill, as well as Bridget Valverde in the Senate, and a bunch of other Democrats challenging basically the Speaker of the House. Joe Shikarchi was the lawyer for the parent company who want to do this, build this plant. Now, this plant, interestingly, is right on the West Warwick, East Greenwich Division Street, divides the two cities. Literally 50 yards, 100 yards on the West Warwick side, but it's the East Greenwich delegation and town council that's putting up a bigger fight because they're saying we're an abutting township and we should have some say in this, especially since a lot of hazardous waste are going to be driven over our roads in order to get to the facility. So you've got a real fight here. I mean, and the facility doesn't just, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the facility saying that the waste can be turned into some kind of green energy?
Yeah, well, there's the solid byproduct, and then there's the gas, which can be burned like natural gas, and so it is a renewable in that sense.
So, but yet the environmental left doesn't like it because they're just like they don't like nuclear because they're concerned about potential pollution. But while we don't know we can't comment on the viability of the technology and the safety of it. What is interesting to me is the politics of this. You got Shikarchi on the one hand, you've got some high-ranking committee heads, Craven, Serpa, as well as some progressive environmentalists going against this, but yet the insider political class wants this. Dominic Ruggiero put in a bill, apparently, I was told a year or two ago, that would have allowed this kind of technology, where these bills you're talking about would shut it down. Very interesting political battle. Who do you think is going to win?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I could see this being an attempt to get the nose in a tent and then put it elsewhere in the state, somewhere that's not quite as in the middle of things. I think in the long run, frankly, we've had these fights in Tiverton too, not on medical waste, but on the wood version, where you just can't do it. No matter how good the technology is, the state will not let you have one of these plants, which is, to me, just insane. There's got to be some level of safety and
well, and this is also what makes it interesting. This could be a classic NIMBY situation, right? Where just some people just don't want anything in their backyard, right? Whether it's a windmill or it's a solar panel or a waste facility or anything, right? A lot of I don't want anything in my backyard. On the other hand, it could be, everything has to start somewhere. There are no plants like this specifically. This apparently this technique, this process is not new, but using on a medical waste is new. Who knows? Does that necessarily make it bad, or could it be the vanguard of a really cool new way to dispose of waste and to create some energy while you're at it? So we just don't know. That's what makes it interesting too.
Yeah, and that's why a complete ban. I mean, you could have smaller kind of trial ones. There's got to be, one of the interesting things here in the technology, as we just mentioned, they capture most of the gas for energy, most of the gas that's released in a steam. If you could capture all of it, then you're talking completely clean, right? And that's just a technology.
But here's the final word on this, and where I think the real problem is, and we're going to have some guests on within the next couple of weeks on this. We're doing a little investigation and talk and trying to understand the issue. But what the red flag for me on this, and probably was for these sponsors of this bill, the DEM hasn't given final approval yet. They've indicated that they may, and they're likely to. The town planning board hasn't given final approval yet, although they've indicated they may, and they're likely to, and the town council hasn't voted on it yet. They're getting an uproar from the people. But even without any approval, the company has already leased space and is constructing and moving equipment into that space before any official approvals have been granted, which could be, not even counting lawsuits, which could be 6 months away. So what do they know? Why are they spending money to construct and bring in equipment? What do they know that the rest of us don't know. That to me smells of insider rigged politics, probably some kind of corrupt politics. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could construct a view where they're putting stuff in there and getting stuff done so that when they go to approval, they can say, we've already put all this money into it. Please, I could see that, but this is Rhode Island, so I kind of agree. The tendency, like we're seeing with marijuana this year, the tendency is for government to put these things in as a trial balloon to begin with, and then they'll wait for the opportunity. If it's 10 years, they'll just wait and they'll pass it when they can. That may be what they're thinking. We'll hold on to this and eventually we'll be able to get it through there. So the real test will be, if it doesn't pass this year, where are the campaign dollars going? Who's falling for what in what line? And you'll be able to watch it progress over time.
All right. Justin Katz, once again, you nailed it. You've got good bills, you got bad bills, and then you brought up here at the end a really interesting bill. I'm not sure where I am on this. We're gonna look into this med recycler bill in West Greenwich, West Warwick, East Greenwich. West East gets me confused. West Warwick, East Greenwich. Justin, great hat again, and thanks for being with us on In the Dugout.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Tomorrow's show is going to be really interesting. I want to hear. I'm going to try to keep an open mind. We're going to talk to John Marion from Common Cause, Rhode Island, who's going to talk about why everything that we as conservatives feel was wrong with the 2020 elections, both in this state and in other states. The insecure process that led to election unintegrity, why they think putting those things into permanent law are a good idea. I want to hear that tomorrow. We will have John Marion on, one of the lead advocates for this legislation. He'll be on at the bottom of the hour tomorrow. At the top of the hour, my comments on the governor's budget. I'm not happy with it. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not happy with a lot of early things I'm seeing. I like Governor McKee. I want to keep an open mind for him, but I'm disappointed in some of the early things I'm seeing. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in today for In the Dugout. Mike